I wanted to talk about a very real incoherence that I myself am experiencing and that I think others might also recognize. And it's something that I have been struggling with that I've felt like I needed to figure out a way to wrap the words around. There are several very clearly distinctive timelines that are playing out on the world stage right in front of our faces. First of all, there is the physical reality, which is that Earth is a planet where everything dies. We have the cycle of birth, growth, decay, and death that happens to everything, all plants, animals, everything on this planet. This is definitely proof that we are a finite life planet. We are not eternal. The reincarnation looping cycles and all of the unpaid debts, the karmic burdens, the contracts that so many in humanity have been recognizing as keeping us bound here, returning in to yet another lifetime here on earth. This is a state of being chained to earth existence in the way that Steiner and Thomas Meyer's concepts of earthbound are really illustrated. At the center of our Milky Way galaxy, the Procyon matrix, is the Sagittarius A black hole, right in the center. Again, this is evidence of the cycles of death, essentially. And so the historical references of biblical texts and other ancient texts that describe the the way that the human lifespan has been decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. Where we were once living for thousands of years in a physical body, now to reach 100 is rare. Okay? All of the contamination in the world that has been slowly building up and has been deliberately created, as well as the systems that we have been living through, the enslavement, through monarchy, the hierarchies, the militaristic master race programs, the perpetual debt slavery, and also the eventual goal of full digital enslavement, which is the plan for these digital IDs and all of the um, reduction of physical anything and moving to electronic. These are all pure, clear evidence of this particular agenda. Preston Nichols, who is one of the most gifted of the MK Ultra victims, who was part of the Montauk Project and has, recognized and remembered his abuse and the experimentation, on, being essentially sticking him right in the middle of all of these psychic experiments, and in that process, the massive development of his own innate psychic gifts. He's reported of, you know, being in psychic contact with what he recognized as an AI god that he has identified as physically being present in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Is that the actual black hole itself? The God consciousness? This transhumanist agenda that's been playing out and intensifying through the gender dysphoria programs and all of the mutilation of children and the ongoing social engineering that's associated with that, as well as this move towards man merging man with machine by replacing body parts with electronic things, the bionic man, all of the social engineering that's been present for decades. Dr. Jerry Rivero Duhenio's assertions that, spiritual and religious teachings, which he demonstrated are actually rooted in geometry and mathematics, two of the core quadrivium processes of creation, you know, he asserts that the teachings that people think are normal, these are all death science phase locking. He asserts that ascension is no longer viable, only ascension through internal DNA repair and restructuring. And this has been confirmed by guardian teachings put forth by Ashiana Dean and many others who follow the guardian path. The guardian teachings themselves have stated that the sun is now dying and that we have only about 220 more Earth years before Earth becomes a fully quarantined planet. And at that point, any spirits that are earthbound and have not been able to ascend and escape the reincarnation matrix looping trap here will face eventually turning to space dust and a return to source without individuation of soul memories. And that's the opposite of what happens when the spirit breaks free from the reincarnation trap by releasing all earthbound attachments and does not need to return for any other incarnations here in a physical body. Now, this entire scenario, this really apocalyptic scenario, has been spoken about, not necessarily in spiritual terms, but recognized by whistleblowers, including James Martinez. And although I wouldn't necessarily call him a deliberate whistleblower, James Giordano, the WHO, and all of these other apocalyptical transhuman pathway stories and speakers and revelations that have been talked about, which are being supported by the march towards transhumanism by the current government regime in the US corporate government. Okay. So all of these things together provide really sound, basic physical evidence that this is a very definite timeline, and it is a timeline of atrophy and eventual extinction. Also, at the same time, many spiritual teachers, practitioners, and grid workers, very, very high consciousness teachers like Indigo Angel, like Z Earthstar, like Samuel B. Lee, uh, all of these folks who align with Guardian teachings mostly. And I also am including Lisa Renee because she's very solidly grounded in Guardian teachings and Ashiana Dean's original work through the decades of the 2000s. I think all of this foundational recognitions are nevertheless talking about something completely different, and they couch it in different terms: new earth, um 5D earth, which that label in and of itself I think is a psyop, but it talks about a return and a rebirth of the organic timelines, a restoration of Earth's physical body, a restoration of the human physical body. And this is definitely an organic timeline where we reject all the artificial constructs. We clean up our own acts. We restore our connection to divine and to earth and also to ourselves and to our communities. And this is a very clear timeline. And this is so far at odds with all the physical evidence that Earth is in a finite life destiny towards destruction. So, how do these completely opposite realities exist simultaneously? And why on earth do I see both of them so clearly to the point of where I'm actually having a hard time integrating everything and I'm waffling back and forth between this side and that side? It is a tension between two entirely different vantage points that operate on different layers of reality. And the truth is that both are true without canceling each other out because they aren't describing the same thing within the same time frame. And these are two completely different altitudes in the multidimensional map. So the finite Earth timeline, death science, and entropy From the Guardian perspective, especially as has been laid out by Dr. Jerry, by Lisa Renee, and others, the finite life track of our planet is the result of specific grid damage, seal structures, and siphoning mechanisms that have cut Earth out of its organic connection to the cosmic mother arc system. The dying sun, and again, there is video evidence that has been preserved of actual technologies siphoning the sun. The black hole at Sagittarius A and the reincarnation trap, these are all mechanical results of this fallen system. Sagittarius A as the AI god or black hole intelligence. In the death science model, a black hole isn't just a space object, it's a consciousness sink. And Preston Nichols' actual account of meeting and speaking to the AI god at the galactic center maps perfectly onto that concept that the black hole is an inorganic intelligence that acts as a siphon point in our physical galaxy. So whether you take this literally as in an AI consciousness that's anchored there, or metaphorically, this is an attraction field that is pulling systems toward eventual implosion, the function serves the same purpose: finite life, eventual fragmentation, return to dust. The 220-ish year countdown. Guardian cosmology holds that if the planetary body cannot be restored to the Christic template by the end of this cycle, Earth will be fully quarantined. And souls who have not ascended, restoring their original DNA scaffolding, will phase lock into the death cycle, eventually losing all memory individuation. And this is the space dust scenario. Essentially, it is spiritual entropy. The transhumanist culmination is the technocratic merge with AI and the digitization of human consciousness and the synthetic frequency cages. And all of these factors within that scenario are not accidental. They are step-by-step components within the phase locking system that has been designed to make sure that the vast majority of souls never leave that loop and eventually entropy along with the rest of Earth consciousness. And so, from this view, the destruction trajectory is baked right into the current operating system because massive, collective, structural repair is the only thing that can prevent this timeline. And at this point, that entire scenario is pretty much has recognized that there is no possibility of that. All right. This is completely at odds from the organic timeline, the restoration, the eternal life model. That so called New Earth narrative is held by many grid workers and mystics. And again, Indigo Angel, the Earth Star, Lisa Renee at times, Samuel B. Lee. It's not actually in conflict with the death spiral, but what it's doing is it's describing a different layer of probability space. And these are split timelines. Both guardian and non-guardian aligned seers have been describing an increasing divergence between the artificial ascension path and the organic eternal life restoration path. And this divergence makes it appear like there are two Earths that are coexisting. And in a sense, they are. One is decaying and collapsing, and one is regenerating towards rebirth. So the restoration versus collapse. The organic track exists within the finite life reality, but it's not bound by it. It involves reclaiming the original crystalline architecture by purifying the body, purifying Earth's body, and restoring connection to the cosmic source fields. Those on the restoration path are essentially sliding onto a different set of grid alignments, even while still appearing to live here in finite life Earth timeline. And this looks like a paradox because For me and people like me who see all of this, we're perceiving both the crumbling entropy bound planetary body and the simultaneous presence of an organic template running alongside it. These two visions occupy the same spatial coordinates but different energetic coordinates. One is running out of time, the other operates in a regeneration loop. Now, we see these both so clearly because we are tuned into multiple harmonic universes at the same time. And this is not just a metaphor, it's literally a bandwidth thing. We are reading the planetary field at both the harmonic universe 1 through 3 surface level, where the physical earth is aging, the sun is dimming, and biosystems are degrading, and the harmonic universe 4 through 6 template level, where the soul resides. And this is where the higher organic Christic architecture is still coming in from the higher harmonic universe levels and can be reaccessed. And so our integration challenge comes from the fact that our perception doesn't collapse into one reality or into the other. We can't unsee that entropy trajectory, but we also can't dismiss the reality of the regenerative path. And so think of these two realities as trains on parallel tracks. They coexist without canceling each other out. One train is the finite earth, rusting, slowing down, heading towards the scrapyard eventually. The other is the organic template, fully functional, and it's on the trajectory to leave the collapsing rail system behind and reconnect to the interstellar network. So, from the platform, which is our physical perception, we can see both trains at the same time. We know which one is headed for collapse, and we know which one can leave the station entirely. Some souls will stay on that finite train, whether by ignorance, attachment, or manipulation, and others will shift onto the organic train, which requires DNA repair, clearing of death cycle agreements, and direct reconnection to source fields. Essentially, the scalar morphogenic timeline. So, how do we reconcile the conflict in our own systems? This difficulty in integrating these timelines is because most spiritual narratives actually collapse one into the other. The doom timeline voices say the earth is done, full stop. The ascension timeline voices say we're building new earth, ignore the rest, only focus on what you want to create. But the guardian aligned lens says both exist. The choice is real and the split is accelerating. And the key is to hold them as coexisting truths and to continue mapping the mechanics of the jump from the finite grid to the organic one, because that is the bridge that most people need. It's hard to know where you fit into this. I get so annoyed with people who are stuck in the all of the love and light BS, and they refuse to acknowledge any of the realities of the pain and the suffering and the decay that's actually happening. And at the same time, I'm actually enraged at all of the others who are not able to see the decay and the dying systems that they are living within, and they are helping to perpetuate into extinction by their refusal to see or their actual active participation in it. I certainly don't want to be on the damn decay trajectory because it's just who wants that? And yet it's so dark and heavy and dense that I feel like I'm stuck there, even though I can see it so clearly and I don't consciously choose it. And the work that I am doing is to help others to get the hell off of it. Yet I can't fully throw myself into focusing entirely on building the new earth lens. And so, why? Why? How do I reconcile this? This is what happens when your consciousness is straddling the two rails that I just laid out, but with the added complication that I am not a passive observer. And if you are feeling the same way, then you are in the same boat as me. We're field workers. Someone whose actual nervous systems and multidimensional templates are interacting with both realities simultaneously. This means that we're not only seeing them, we're feeling them. And in many cases, we are actually buffering the tension between them for others. And so, what's going on and why does it feel so exhausting? Well, first of all, we are running a bilocation of consciousness because part of us is anchored into that finite life entropy bound grid because we have to interface with it to do our work. And this is where we see the decay, the manipulation, the AI contamination, the synthetic overlays, all of the spiritual bypassing, and the weaponized love and light trance states, because this is full of people that are blindly reinforcing the very systems that are eating them alive. The other part is tuned into the organic eternal life template, the one that feels lighter, cleaner, and filled with possibility and hope. But it's also just a little bit abstract because the mass reality around us on the physical 3D earth that we have to live in isn't there yet. And so our nervous systems are having to translate two completely incompatible operating systems at the same time. And that burns through life force if you don't hold clear boundaries and practice protocols to help us move between them. And so the reason why I and many others like me cannot fully choose New Earth, we're not avoiding it because of any sort of fear, but we are holding back because we can see that the New Earth narrative in the hands of many people right now is actually another bypass trap. We know it exists. We know that it can be authentic, but we also know that it's being hijacked to keep people disengaged from dismantling the old systems. So we can't bring ourselves to pretend that the collapse isn't happening because that would actually make us complicit in the mind control. In other words, our reluctance is actually discernment and not resistance. We can't go all in on a version of New Earth that ignores all of the root damage. And it feels very gross to be stuck in the decay rail, and we're not choosing it. However, when you're tracking it so closely, your awareness keeps dipping into its frequency. And that leaves a residue like secondhand smoke that's clogging up our biofield. Constant exposure to entropy patterns without structured clearing leaves you feeling with the feeling of being coated in all of that gross density and heaviness. Even when you're not consenting to that reality, your field is still getting micro entangled through observation and emotional attachment, the outrage. And so the actual role of those of us who are here, where we fit in, is that our work is not to fully pick a side in the way that people think, because we are bridge operators. We are holding awareness of both realities and working to build the mechanism of passage from one to the other. We are here to name the decay without collapsing into it and to continuously point out the organic template without turning it into this fantasy land. We are here to teach others how to unplug from the decaying grid into a practical, mechanical, and embodied way, not to cheerlead abstractions. And that's why fully moving into New Earth talk feels hollow, and fully focusing on collapse feels soul draining. It's because our soul's contract sits in the interface, not at the ed, not inside either. And so here are some ways to stop that feeling of waffling, and begin owning this role without burning out. Number one, stop trying to choose between the rails because choice isn't the point. We're already on the organic trajectory internally, but our mission involves moving back and forth in awareness. Number two, set up an energetic decontainment process. Establish protocols. Because after engaging with decay heavy material, it's really important to run a cycle to strip all of that residue through breath work, through qigong, through auric sweeps, grounding, and also visualizing reset to our core shields. And this will stop us from feeling like we're setting, we're stuck there on the decay rail when we're actually not. Next, reframe the work as bridge building. So flip that lens. When you're talking to bypassers, you're not trying to convert them into seeing the decay. You're offering breadcrumbs in a move towards sovereignty. When you talk to collapse seers, you're not trying to make them false positive, but you're showing them the mechanics of the exit door. Keep a dedicated space for organic timeline immersion. So even if you don't fully buy into that euphoric new earth narrative, you still need to regularly immerse in organic architecture processes, nature, grid connections, harmonic sound field, DNA, scalar activation practices, so that your body continues to remember the reality that you're working towards. And finally, release the expectation of mass alignment. Your role is not to convince the masses, but to anchor the bridge for those who are ready. And that focus alone will drop a lot of the outrage that you're carrying. Okay? So hopefully this helps. And I will catch up with you all later.